Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 7, and this is going to be my review for Episode 11, which is sort of the mid-season finale for this season, otherwise entitled Family Matters Part 2. Now, of course, we're going to be talking about everything that happens in this episode, so if you've not watched the episode, go away, then come back later on. But of course, if you are continuing on with the video, be sure to let me know your various thoughts, opinions, theories heading out of it, anything like that. I'm always curious to hear what you guys have to say about the episodes. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support for the video, the channel, and if you enjoyed the episode. So last episode was Family Matters Part 1, the first part of this, two-part finale for this story. Pretty much the episode was revolved around Alexa being able to control Faweza, getting Psyche on their side, which they eventually do, and also Alexa is able to control Faweza. And also it's the Speed Force bringing Dion onto her side. And at the end of the episode, we see her take the powers and or lives, or led to believe that she takes the powers and or lives of Psyche, Alexa, and Iris as well. However, we pick up the episode right where we left off, which doesn't surprise me because it was a two-part we usually do. But Iris, Psyche, and Alexa aren't dead anymore. They just reappear. They go away, then they reappear 2 seconds later. So they just come right back to life. And apparently it was due to Psyche. So he made everyone think that the whole situation went down, made an illusion, which I thought was a bit random. I was actually I personally think it might have been better if they went somewhere else. I actually sort of mentioned how I thought it was actually going to go down in my trailer breakdown. And to be completely honest, I thought that would have made the episode better. But yeah, they did that, so fair enough. But the idea, around this whole thing and, then coming back to life and them keeping them safe is to hide the others from the Speed Force in the past within the Speed Force itself. So obviously the Speed Force died, so they go into the Speed Force where she wasn't previously, if that makes sense. But I don't know if that makes sense because the Speed Force exists out of space and time. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know how necessarily that works, but am I wrong in saying that? It exists out of space and time, so is there a past in the Speed Force? I don't know, I was sort of confused by that. But anyway, apparently that Nora wasn't there because we know that she died for a bit. But within the Speed Force, it had that corrupted black and white lightning, which I thought looked pretty cool. It almost looked like that thing from The Mandalorian, the lightsaber, the dark saber, whatever it's called, that thing. It sort of looked like that, which I thought was pretty cool. But we did have a breakout at Iron Heights throughout this episode due to a massive storm, which wouldn't surprise me too much if that just leads to certain metahuman stuff in the back half, but also maybe the Godspeed stuff, because remember they said that the Godspeeds were in Iron Heights, but I think they said all of them eventually died, but I do wonder if maybe one's alive in there or something along those lines. I hope that the Iron Heights stuff isn't just due to one thing that happens in this episode. Hopefully it's a catalyst for a couple of different things that happen throughout the back half of the season. But yeah, there's an Iron Heights breakout due to the storm, but also Cecile's actually hit with what looked to be purple lightning, which is of course associated with Psyche, even though technically it should be blue. I don't know. Now Nora, or the Speed Force, gives Barry an ultimatum. It's pretty much bring the other forces to her, or the whole of Central City is going to go bye-bye. It's going to be destroyed. And Barry can tell there is no joke or really empty threat there. He's taking it seriously. So he needs to find Dion. And I'll just say what I thought was going to happen in this episode. I thought the others actually would have, quote-unquote died or, been taking their powers and their lives away from the end of last episode. So pretty much the goal for Barry this episode would be to find Dion, team up with him, and bring them back to life, how we saw Barry and Iris do to Alexa. I think it cuts out a lot of the stuff in this episode where we had to hang out with the other forces and Iris in that Speed Force house. I thought, and it also takes out that plot hole where really is there a past within the Speed Force. I'm not too sure why they didn't go down that route. Maybe just because they wanted the other ones to have screen time. But I think that makes for a cleaner story. That's just me personally. But anyway, as I said, we did have that Iron Heights breakout. Now, Chilblain escapes Iron Heights and heads straight to Ivo Labs to steal again. That's what he did previously and framed Frost and everything like that. And he's actually in a comic accurate design with a Magic Mike twist. That's probably the best way I can describe it. The top of him looked very much like the Chilblain from the comics, but he obviously had his abs exposed, and that's the Magic Mike twist chucked in there. Now, it wasn't just him. Frost also breaks out of Iron Heights, so if them two conveniently get out, you have to think a lot of other criminals and metahumans got out as well. and she gets out in order to chase him, which I think was a bit weird. I thought it was a weird excuse. This is meant to be like a reformed Frost. Would she really go out? I don't know. I guess it works out at the end, and we'll talk about that later on. But I guess it works out, for her. Nothing too bad happens. But they do have like I called it, like I wrote down, Street Fighter style fight scene. That's what it reminded me of. Like they filmed it sort of on the side, and I guess like Chilblain looked like a Street Fighter villain. Like he looked like someone that would be in Street Fighter or like Mortal Kombat or something like that. So yeah, it wasn't my favorite. Look, actually, with the Chilblain and Frost stuff, it felt like it was ripped out from another episode. It felt like it wasn't meant to be in this week's episode, and I think it was, but it just felt super out of place. That was just, I don't know if anyone else thought that. It just felt out of place. It felt like it was meant to be in next week's episode or the something else. I don't know, it just felt out of place to me. Now, Barry does find Dion and does alert him that the others are alive, that it was all an illusion, that he wants to, who wants him to work with him. But Dion just wants to go at it solo, which, as we know, is never a good idea. And it doesn't end up good for Dion, even though Barry is by his side later on. Now, Joe does bring up the idea of just letting Dion kill the Speed Force, which would save many lives. But that was also always one of my issues with this storyline, having the Speed Force be this threat, is that, well, if you destroy her, doesn't that stop Barry's powers? So like to win, Barry has to get rid of his powers like completely. That was always my issue with it. So, and I think that's sort of the issue that comes at the end of this story as well, and the roads and the path that they took. But yeah, I guess some motivational Joe. There's actually a couple of motivational Joe scenes about this episode. Now in that Speed Force house thing, Psyche makes an agreement with Alexa to bail on Iris in the safe spot thing to actually take the Speed Force on directly, but Iris actually destroys their way home. Well, Psyche makes her think that she did this. Obviously, he actually has an illusion, makes Iris think that she destroyed it, and in reality, he had it in his hand all the time. You can see that Psyche is overpowered, and we'll bring that up later on when I tell you what I think should have happened at the end of this story, but I'm sort of confused they didn't read. I know it's easy in hindsight, but I'm really confused that they didn't actually see where they should have taken this story. Now, Barry does talk to the Speed Force, and Nora reveals that it's actually the other forces that are behind all the weird activity in Central City and the storm going on. They're the problem, not the Speed Force. And Team Flash are actually able to think back to things that have happened recently and stuff that we've been questioning, like, what the hell was that? Why was that there? And it ties everything together. With certain like anomalies throughout the city, which once again, I thought they were leading to this thing, this end goal in the episode, and they never went there. And I was sort of disappointed by it because I thought this episode was setting that up really well and they just never even touch it, which really disappointed me. And I'll talk about it when relevant. But yeah, Barry realizes they need to bring the forces together rather than trying to, keep them separate like they previously were. Obviously, I think this was from Joe's suggestion. So we did have the forces versus Nora first on the street, but then it goes into the Speed Force, which was looking like, I thought they were in hell. It looked like really demonic. And I thought that was a really cool scene. Some of the CGI was a bit off, but I think for the most part, it actually looked pretty cool. And like Dion sort of actually like just turned into like almost like invisible through his powers. I thought it was actually a fairly cool scene. But they break out of there because I actually think that would have been, I think for every like 10 seconds we're in that scene, it was probably quite a lot of money to do and just a lot of time to do. So they break out of that pretty quickly. But there's actually a bigger threat at hand rather than the Speed Force. And that's just like almost like Big Bang like event on its way through like the cosmic forces and everything. And as soon as that was happening, I was like, oh, okay, we're not going down the road I thought we were. So I started to lose hope there, but I was still interested to see how they'd wrap it up. Now, one of the more interesting scenes was when Dion actually shows the Speed Force a future where the other forces are destroyed, where she's all alone. And despite that being silly because she was alone beforehand anyway for a long time, so I don't know why it would matter anyway. I mean, yeah, anyway. That empty city looked, that empty city sort of design and everything looked really cool. I actually thought the broadcast of the episode had stuffed up and they went to an advertisement, like an ad break. But then I could hear like Nora, and I was like going like, no, and I was like, oh, well, maybe my thing's stuffed up, and I was like, oh no, it's actually part of it. So I thought that looked really, really cool. But yeah, so Nora's like, well, I don't want to be alone, so she does team up with the others to make Barry like super overpowered and supercharged with all the forces in order to stop the cosmic force coming down on Central City. So it's a happy ending for the forces. I do wonder whether Barry holds those powers going forward. I'll have to wait and see because he was pretty powerful then. Now, it wouldn't have made sense to destroy the Speed Force as the end goal. Obviously, I've said that before because then Barry loses his powers, or he should at least. It wouldn't make sense. However, this is what I think they should have done. And I thought this episode was sort of leading up to it as well. I think they should have I think they should have made it so that the other forces were the issue, which they were setting up, but it wasn't all of them. They weren't all evil, but it was someone like Psyche was influencing them through visions and illusions. We saw how OP he was. He could make people think that certain things were happening, but other things were happening, and he was controlling them without them even knowing. He didn't have to like glow his eyes or anything like that. He could just make it happen. Why didn't they make him the villain? And he was doing it for other intentions. I thought that would have been cool. I thought that would have been really, really cool. Maybe he wanted to be the lead force and have all these other forces work for him or something along those lines. I thought that would have been the better way to do it. And you have a clear villain, a clear team, a clear threat that the other forces and Barry, or at least just Barry specifically, have to take out. And maybe they can, mislead us to think that the Speed Force is the issue the entire time. But then we can track back through the previous episodes and go, oh, well, Psyche was doing this, Psyche was doing that. That would have been cool. And maybe Psyche was pretending last episode to give in to them so he could get in within, that group to further his plan. I thought that would have been the better way to go. And I thought this episode was actually leading up to that, and then they just went nowhere with it. So that disappointed me a bit. But yeah, the Speed Force and the other forces are living happily ever after, I guess, in the Speed Force area or the Force area. I don't know what you would call it. Complete with a house as well. So is the Speed Force the mother now? Or is she the auntie or the older sister? I don't know. But yeah, as I said before, we did have Frost breaking out of Iron Heights, and we find out that Frost gets out on probation for good behavior from the DA. And she lets Caitlin know that she has a thing for Chilblain. Doesn't say that to Caitlin, but we know who she's referring to, which I don't think is going to end good. I don't understand how that would end good. I have to wait and see. I don't know how much Chilblain's in this season. I know I have to wait and see what happens there, because I think they only said he was in for a few episodes, so we'll have to wait and see where he shows up next. But they made him a suit, so I guess he's going to be in more than just that little one scene with the suit, so I'd assume we're going to see him more and more. But the end of the episode is Barry and Iris discussing, what just happened, and they're going to start a family, and Barry even says he loves that loves the impulse from Iris or something like that in regards to pushing that forward. So we should assume that Iris is revealed as being pregnant at some point towards the end of this season, maybe somewhere around that, or like maybe the finale or somewhere towards the end of the season, something along those lines. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. That makes me think that season 8 might be the last season, because as we've seen with Joe and Cecile, dealing with children on the show is not easy, let alone when you're the lead character. So I don't think, season 8 could be the last season based off that setup, but that's for us to wait and find out, because children are never easy to handle on a show. But yeah, overall, this episode had some good elements, but also I think the best way I can put it is, I think they had a lot of good setup, if not great setup, in the previous episodes, but I think they did fall at the final hurdle. I don't think anyone would be overly happy with how that story ended. They really got to stop the whole pep talk thing, which I understand why they do it, because they want to make it that other characters, whether it be Iris, Caitlin, Chester, even Cisco without his powers and stuff like that, can talk down someone without having to, be a physical threat. But don't make Barry do it. I mean, he's so powerful. He can just use his powers and not hurt anyone. So they have to stop that. Hopefully heading into this back half of the season, they maybe heard some of that criticism before they made those episodes. I don't know if that's the case. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, this whole storyline, as I said, had really good to great setup, but I think they just fell at the final hurdle, even though this episode had some good elements as well. But I'm happy that we're sort of moving on. I'm interested to see how they handle the back half of the season with that storyline. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on this episode. Did you like this storyline, or you like with me where you liked most of it and then just sort of it fell apart at the end? Or do you like the entire thing, or do you hate the entire thing? Just let me know your various opinions down there. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.